I, I can't believe I have to follow that. I mean, my hair does not even match my shoes. So. So, a few weeks ago, a story from my life got stuck in my head for days on end. And usually, when this happens, that means that God's trying to talk to me through that story. And I'll figure out in a few weeks or a month or whatever kind of what's going on. Well, the story got stuck in my head. It was just a boring story, so I'm going to tell it to you. Right? So, back in 20 years ago, like 2004, I got transferred to London. And everything was different there. I mean, the building I worked in was different. The house I lived in had a turret and was built in 1863 or something. The way I got to work was different. I walked 20 minutes to a train station and took a little short train in. Everything was different. The food was different. Everything was different. And I loved that. I mean, I had only lived in Houston and Baton Rouge at that point, so this was exciting. It was an exciting time. And I had gone to work on a big project, like $1 billion IT project, with many, many other people from across the globe we had come. So we were all new to London, and we were all excited about being there. And we had lots of questions about how things worked. And one day we were all talking, and we were trying to figure out what the deal was with this magazine that we would see guys and gals hawking on the streets of London on every corner all the time. And the magazine was called The Big Issue. So we were like, what's the big issue? And clever title, right? So one of the guys actually bought one, and he said, I don't get it. Everyone in London is buying this thing, but it's a glorified TV guide. So we asked the locals, what's the big issue? And they told us that the company that put it out was a company whose goal was to eradicate homelessness. And so they produced this magazine and hired all these people to sell it. And the guys and gals who sold it they kept a lot of the profits from it, and then some went back into the company so they could hire more people. And everyone in London bought one because it was such a great program. Everyone really embraced it. And they explained that there's no set price for it. You pay whatever you feel you can pay or that you want to pay. And they further told us that if you're a celebrity in London, you better pay at least £50 or you will end up in all the gossip rags as being cheap. And you would see that every now and again. So all of us Americans, of course, we embraced it. It was a great program. I literally walked past my big issue guy every single day on the way to work. And I got to know him. I would talk to him. I bought one every week. And he suffered from some depression occasionally. And I knew the second I saw him what kind of day he was having. So some days I would just really let him talk and listen to him. So remember, I said, this story's in my head. I'm reliving the whole thing. And I'm wondering, like, God, what am I supposed to do with this? And days went by, and nothing ever came up, so I kind of forgot about it. And then the phone rang. And I got my big issue, because a friend of mine called me. Now, I had been complaining about something over and over to this friend. I had been throwing other people under the bus about it. I had been acting high and mighty like I knew what was best. And like a good friend, she called me on it. And she explained that I was resisting not doing something that I needed to do and leaving it to others, and so I had no right to complain about it. And she got me to acknowledge my role in creating that in my life. Now, that's one of the 12 steps, and that's a very effective 12-step for me when I sit back and go, oh, I'm not a victim. I've created this. I have a role in this. So she did it with a lot of love. And she even said, I can help you with this, and we can model the right behavior. And so that was my big issue. So for the next couple of weeks, I totally resisted that advice and poo-pooed it. And I even wondered, at my age, do I even want to work on this? I'll work on this in my next life. And I asked myself, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Because I love being right. I love being right. But in this case, I was neither right nor happy. And so then I started thinking, so if I want to fix this, what's in my toolkit? And I kind of realized that most of my self-improvement, personal growth, spiritual growth has been rather organic. It's not been, oh, I have this issue, I'm going to go fix it, and here's the 3 steps. It just kind of happened through life. You know, you have job changes, and you get married, and you grow up, and you have responsibilities, and so you just grow in life. And so I kind of started thinking about what's my toolkit. And I thought about this Bible verse, which I think kind of hit the nail on the head, for me anyway. Matthew 7:3. And it says something like, we're so easy to see the speck of sawdust in our brother's eye while we ignore the plank in our own. Yep, nailed it, right? Yeah, that was my big issue. So I just started thinking about what's in my toolkit. Well, the first thing I came up with, I need to stop resisting. I need to stop procrastinating. I need to be action-oriented. You know, that my whole time through college and in my work career, I don't think I ever procrastinated, because you couldn't. It just wasn't set up to do that. I would have been a complete failure. But in my personal life, and since I retired, queen of procrastination. Yeah, I can procrastinate with the best of them. Just ask that guy there sitting on the front row. So that's one of our unity principles, is to be action-oriented. You know, through thoughts, words, and actions, I live the truth I know. There's this parable, this Buddhist parable, that talks about this guy that got shot by an arrow. And all of his family and friends, they come to him, and they bring a doctor that can remove the arrow. But he says, oh, no, not yet. I want to know who shot me, how old they are, what's their name, what's their parents' name, what's the arrow made of, where did they shoot me from, what kind of bow did they use? He would have been dead by the time he got the answer to all those questions, right? So the moral of that story is, don't get lost in the mindless, just unimportant details. Don't get bogged down in the minutia, because that's keeping you from your truth, and that's keeping you from making the kind of change that you need to make. And the next thing that's kind of in my toolkit is pretty basic, and it's just returning to God, returning to my oneness, knowing that I am one with my source, and God is the source of all of my good. And that's another one of our unity principles, is that, there's one power in the universe and in our lives, and that's God, and God is good, and we have access to that 100% of the time. And God gives us grace to be able to do any kind of transformation that it is that we need. With God, all things are possible. Another thing in my toolkit is one that I learned right here on Wednesday nights in Sacred Circle. And it's kind of new to me, and it's to get curious about this thing I need to change. And because it's a new tool for me, I don't have any baggage about it. I can just do it, and it feels very childlike to me to just get curious about something. And I can do some data mining there, because I love me some data. I can look for patterns and go, oh, I did this last week too. Oh, I did this a month ago. Oh, I did this last year. I did this in second grade. So, you can look for those patterns. And that's key to being able to make transformation in your lives. Now, the next thing I like to do is just really basic kind of table stakes. And that's to make sure that my spiritual practice and my physical practices, I'm doing them right. So I make sure that I'm meditating and I'm praying. That's key if you're going to make any kind of change in your life. And that I'm exercising, I'm drinking water, I'm getting plenty of sleep. I have healthy boundaries where I need them. Just kind of the basic stuff always helps set you up for change. So that's a good thing. And the next thing you got to do is you just got to surrender to God. You have to let go and let God. You have to surrender to God's timeline, because his timeline is not always the same as my timeline. And that's a hard one for me to learn, but I think it's important that I just accept that. Now, the last thing I have to do is stay in humor, because y'all know I love to laugh. And I call it choosing wisely. So I have a story I'm going to tell you. So on Friday mornings, I work out with a trainer at my gym. He just turned 19 years old. I have shoes older than him. And I've nicknamed him the toddler, and he knows that. That's what I call him. Now, the other day he said, "Oh, Teri, I have the funniest story to tell you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I work out this young, 16-year-old girl. She's a soccer player in high school. She's a big athlete. And she was complaining about doing these face pulls at 40 pounds. And I told her, I work out this old lady. I work out this old lady on Friday mornings, and she can do 70 pounds. So I just died laughing. I high-fived him because I bested some 16-year-old athlete, But I stayed in humor, and I chose wisely, because I would hate to have had to find a place to bury his body that day. But anyway. So another story that I just love that demonstrates this is one that I'm going to take you back to the mid-1980s to somewhere early 90s, because it happened in that time frame, but I'm not sure when. So this is the days when FM radio was huge. We listened to FM radio on our way to work, on our way home. We talked about it all day long at work. It was the biggest thing ever. It was big business. The local DJs were celebrities. I mean, everybody talked about radio, and it's what we did. And they were always having these contests where if you're the 10th caller, you win, a prize, a car, dinner out somewhere, tickets to a concert. The contests were all the rage. So one of the most famous, best radio stations was doing this huge contest, and they were hyping it all the time. And the winner of the contest would get to pick the programming for that station for an entire weekend, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So everybody was talking about it, right? Ooh, would I play Christmas music the whole time? Would I play all Elvis? I mean, everyone was talking about it, and the radio station was hyping it. Now, like I mentioned, radio was big, big business then. They probably sold millions of dollars worth of ads, to all the big businesses then. Big business. The number one customer of that radio station was Mattress Mac and Gallery Furniture. And back then, if you remember, if you're an old lady like I am, you'll remember, Mattress Mac was on every TV and every radio station every 30 minutes. And he was going, "I'm Mattress Mac, Gallery Furniture really will save you money." Yep, absolutely. all day long, every day. He was not as big or of an icon or as wealthy as he is today. He was really working to build that business. Well, unbeknownst to all of us listeners, because we didn't know this till the day that Saturday when we all dialed into the radio station, what the person asked for, they didn't care about the music. They wanted a gallery furniture commercial-free weekend. Can you imagine the meeting with Mattress Mac and the radio executives? Awkward. He was their biggest customer. So when we all turned the radio on that Saturday morning, we heard every 30 minutes, "This is Mattress Mac, and you're listening to a gallery furniture commercial-free weekend." Every 30 minutes. It was hilarious. I think I listened all day just to hear him say that. He chose wisely. He stayed in humor. And we can all choose wisely. Take that walk in faith. With God, all things are possible. Thank you.